I found my wife secretly selling our family estate for $450, $0 to her childhood friend behind my back, then discovering she forged my signature to sue me for half of our savings, all while claiming she was protecting my interests. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here we are. The craziest thing happened, and I need to get this off my chest. It all started with a gut feeling that something wasn't right, but I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went until I found out the truth. It's one of those moments where your world just flips upside down in an instant. One minute I'm sitting in my living room, thinking everything's fine, and the next I'm staring at a mountain of lies, betrayal, and money gone sideways. My wife Jessica and I had been married for 8 years. We had a pretty good life, nice house, decent jobs, 2 kids, and a shared dream of building a future together. Jessica always seemed a bit bitchy, but I chalked it up to her being stressed or maybe just her personality. She's the type who's quick with a sharp comment, but she could also be charming when she wanted to be. We had our disagreements, sure, but I never suspected she'd do anything truly malicious. That's what makes what I found so devastating. It all started about 2 months ago when I noticed some odd things. Emails I wasn't on, secretive phone calls, and a strange nervous energy whenever I brought up money or future plans. Jessica had always been a little secretive about her phone, but I never thought much of it. I trusted her, until I didn't. One night, I was scrolling through our shared bank account online, something I did occasionally to keep tabs, and I saw a withdrawal I didn't recognize. It was for $450, $0. I nearly dropped my phone. I clicked through the transaction details and it hit me like a punch to the gut. Jessica had sold our family estate. That's not just some small property, it's the house I grew up in, the one I inherited from my parents. We had plans to renovate it, turn it into a rental, or maybe even pass it down to our kids someday. But now it was gone, sold to her childhood friend, Mark, for what I later found out was exactly $450, $0. How the hell does someone sell a family estate behind your back? I'd never even known she was considering it. I sat there stunned, staring at that screen, trying to process what I was seeing. I didn't even know she was in contact with Mark, let alone making deals behind my back. I felt sick, angry, betrayed, like someone had taken a knife and twisted it right into my chest. I kept thinking, how could she do this without telling me? Was she planning this for months? Did she think I wouldn't notice? But that wasn't all. Just as I was recovering from that shock, I stumbled across something even worse. It turned out Jessica had forged my signature to initiate a lawsuit against me. I found official court documents. She filed for half of our combined savings, claiming I was hiding money or somehow trying to screw her over. The thing is, I had no idea she was doing any of this. She told everyone she was protecting my interests, that I was a bad husband who didn't care about her or our future. But the truth was, she was secretly planning her own version of a future without me. I felt like I'd been punched again. My savings, the house, my name, all manipulated behind my back. I thought I knew her, but I clearly didn't. She'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer, and I was just too blind or too trusting to see it. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she betray everything we built together? And most of all, how do I even begin to process this level of deception? It was like waking up in someone else's nightmare. I knew then that my life was never going to be the same. After I found out about the sale of the estate and the forged signature, I didn't sleep that night. I kept rereading the documents, trying to understand how she managed to pull it off without me noticing. The more I looked, the more I realized how deep her deception went. Jessica had been planning this for months, probably even longer. She'd been sneaking around, lying about her whereabouts, making secret calls, and somehow convincing her childhood friend Mark to buy the property, all behind my back. The next day I confronted her. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I called her at work and told her I knew everything. The estate sale, the lawsuit, the forged signature. Her reaction was immediate. She tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand the situation, that she was just trying to protect our future. She said she'd been doing everything for us, that I was too blind to see her good intentions. It was all a lie, of course. Her tone was bitchy, defensive, and condescending, like I was the one in the wrong for questioning her. When I pressed her further, she started spinning more stories. Said Mark was just an old friend she'd known forever, that she was helping him out with some legal issue, that she had no idea I'd find out. She claimed she forged my signature because I was too busy with work, and she thought she could handle everything herself. She looked me right in the eyes and said she was doing it to protect my interests, that she was worried I'd blow everything up. That was her excuse for everything, protecting me, protecting us. But I could see right through her lies. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again. How could she lie so easily? How could she think I wouldn't find out? I was furious but also heartbroken. I'd trusted her with everything, our money, our future, our lives. And now I was staring at her, realizing she'd been playing me all along. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and so damn angry I could barely speak. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and demand answers, but I just sat there, stunned, trying to process what I'd just learned. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the lies she told, the way she looked so calm, so confident, like she was doing the right thing. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying to my face, manipulating everything. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all of this? How did I not see the signs? The truth was, I'd been blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe she was capable of something so cold. I also started to realize how much money she'd taken from us, selling the estate, forging my signature, suing me for half of our savings. She was draining us dry, and I had no idea. I felt helpless, like I'd been cheated out of everything I'd worked for. The worst part was that I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But now it felt like that love was just a lie, too. I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, and I didn't know how to get out. All I knew was that I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. The days that followed were a blur of shock, anger, and planning. I couldn't focus at work. All I kept thinking about was how Jessica had managed to pull off this elaborate scheme behind my back. The betrayal cut deep, more than I thought possible. I started digging into the legal documents, bank statements, anything I could get my hands on. I needed to understand just how far she'd gone, and more importantly, what I could do to stop her. I found out she had already transferred the estate's sale proceeds into an account she set up under her maiden name. The money was sitting there, untouched, waiting for her to decide what to do next. That was the first thing I secured, got a legal freeze on that account. I also contacted a lawyer, a guy who specialized in property and financial fraud. I wanted to know my options, what could be done to reverse the sale, or at least recover some of the money. It was clear she'd been planning this for a while, but I wasn't going down without a fight. Meanwhile, I started noticing other weird things. Jessica's behavior became even more bitchy and defensive. She was snapping at the kids, giving me cold stares, and lying about where she was during the day. I caught her in small inconsistencies, like her claiming she was at the office but her phone logs showed she was somewhere else. It all added up. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. One afternoon, I decided to do some snooping on her phone. I know, trust is supposed to be the foundation of a marriage, but I'd hit rock bottom. I needed answers. I found texts and emails between her and Mark, the guy who bought the estate. They'd been talking about the sale, about how to split the money, and even plans for her to buy a new house with some of the cash. I saw photos of her and Mark together, laughing and joking around, as if they'd been planning this for months. It was worse than I imagined. What really pissed me off was the way she justified everything. When I confronted her about the text, she said it was just business, that Mark was just an old friend and nothing more. She said she was doing this to help him out, that I was overreacting, but I knew better now. This wasn't some innocent favor, it was a full-blown scam. She had lied to my face, forged my signature, and helped Mark sell my family's property, all while telling me she was protecting my interests. That phrase kept echoing in my mind, how she'd used it to justify her lies. I also discovered she'd been secretly seeing Mark, too. There were text messages about meeting up, plans to discuss the future, and even explicit conversations about sex. That was the last straw. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time it was in my gut. My wife, the woman I loved, was sleeping with her childhood friend, and they'd been scheming behind my back all along. The betrayal was so complete I couldn't even breathe properly. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted the lawyer again, told him everything I'd found, and asked what legal steps I could take. He told me I might be able to sue her for fraud, get the estate sale reversed, and possibly recover some of the money. But it wouldn't be easy. Jessica was clever and she'd covered her tracks well. Still, I had enough evidence to make a case. I also decided I needed to confront her face to face, no more hiding or tiptoeing around the truth. I wanted her to look me in the eye and explain herself. That night, I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding. I told her I knew everything about the sale, the forged signature, the texts, the affair. Her reaction was a mix of anger and denial. She yelled, called me paranoid, said I was accusing her of things I had no proof of, but I had enough evidence now. I told her I was going to take legal action, that she'd have to face the consequences of her lies. She looked at me with a cold, defiant stare and said, "You'll regret this. I did what I did because I was trying to protect us. You're just too blind to see it." That moment made everything real. My wife wasn't just unfaithful, she was a criminal in her own way. I felt sick, but also more determined than ever. I couldn't let her get away with destroying everything we'd built. I had to fight back for myself and for my kids. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to take control, even if it meant tearing everything apart to do it. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal meetings, gathering evidence, and trying to keep my head straight. I spent hours on the phone with lawyers, trying to figure out the best course of action. Every new piece of information I uncovered just fueled my anger. Jessica's lies weren't just small fibs. They were a full-blown conspiracy to wipe out our savings, sell off our family estate, and start fresh with her childhood friend. I kept thinking about how she had been lying to me the entire time, pretending to care, pretending to be the devoted wife I thought I knew. Meanwhile, Jessica's attitude grew more aggressive. She was snapping at the kids, giving me icy stares, and trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. She kept insisting she was doing what was best for us, that I was just being paranoid, that I needed to trust her. But I'd seen enough now. Her words were hollow, her excuses transparent. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of lying, cheating, and betraying everything we'd built together. I started noticing little things. Her phone was always glued to her hand. She'd delete messages right after reading them, and she'd disappear into the bedroom for hours. I knew she was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. Late one night, I snuck into her email account using her laptop, figuring I'd find some confirmation of her affair or more lies. Sure enough, there were emails between her and Mark discussing the sale of the estate, the fake signatures, and their plans for the future. They'd been talking about splitting the money, about how she'd buy a new house, and even about how to keep me from finding out. The more I read, the angrier I got. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. How could she do this to me, to our family? She lied about everything, her intentions, her fidelity, her loyalty. I saw explicit conversations about sex, about meeting up, about her feelings for Mark. It was like a punch to my chest every time I read a new message. She'd been sleeping around, planning to leave me, and all the while she kept up the act of being the good wife. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. All this time I thought we had a solid marriage. I thought she was faithful, honest, committed. But she was just playing me. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to do something fast. I made arrangements to meet with my lawyer again to discuss how to stop the sale, freeze the accounts, and possibly file for divorce on the grounds of fraud and infidelity. That night, I sat her down again. I was done pretending everything was okay. I told her I knew about her affair, the sale, the forged signature, the lies. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous, that I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle the truth. I looked her right in the eyes and said, "You've betrayed me in every way possible. I trusted you, Jessica. I believed in us, but now I see who you really are." Her response was a cold silence, then a dismissive shrug. She said, "You'll regret this. You always do." That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep pretending things would somehow fix themselves. I had to take control, protect myself, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. The betrayal was too deep, and I couldn't just forgive or forget. I knew I had to fight for my rights, for my dignity, and for my future. I couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built without consequences. The road ahead was going to be rough, but I was determined to see it through. I owed that to myself and to my kids. Over the next couple of weeks, everything moved at breakneck speed. I filed the necessary legal paperwork to freeze the sale of the estate and began preparing my case for fraud and breach of trust. My lawyer warned me it wouldn't be easy. Jessica was clever, and she'd been planning this for months. Still, I had enough evidence now that I felt confident I could at least challenge her in court. The thought of losing everything she'd taken from me made my stomach turn, but I refused to back down. Jessica's reaction was predictable. She doubled down on her bitchy attitude, trying to gaslight me into backing off. She told friends and family that I was crazy, that I was overreacting, and that I was trying to ruin her. She kept insisting she was doing this all for our benefit, that I was just too blind to see it. But I knew the truth. I knew she'd been lying from the start, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. One afternoon, I caught her in a lie about where she was supposed to be. Her phone logs showed she'd been meeting Mark again, this time at a hotel. I confronted her in person. She tried to deny it, but her face told me everything I needed to know. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I told her I knew about her affair, about the sale, and about her forging my signature. Her eyes flashed with anger, and she snapped at me, saying I was just jealous, that I was trying to control her. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. She spat back at me, claiming I was ruining everything because I was too insecure to handle her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and heartbroken all at once. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I realized I'd been living with a lie, someone capable of betraying me and destroying my family for her own greed. Every night, I'd lie awake replaying everything. The images of her with Mark, the forged signatures, the sale of the estate, all of it haunted me. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. But I also knew I had to focus. The legal process was moving forward. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine, to stop her from taking any more. I had to protect my kids from the fallout, and I owed it to myself to stand up for what was left. I decided I would not let her win, no matter how much she tried to spin things or gaslight me. I hired a private investigator to dig into her finances further, just to confirm what I already suspected, that she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, buying herself a new life while I was left in the dark. Every day, I felt more like a stranger in my own life. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And yet, I knew I had to keep fighting, no matter how exhausting or painful it was. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, with my house, my savings, my reputation. I had to be strong for my kids, for myself. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, about reclaiming what was stolen from me. And I was starting to believe I could get it back, even if it meant tearing down everything I'd thought was real. The court date finally arrived, and I knew I had to face her one last time. Jessica, the woman I thought I knew, now exposed as someone capable of lies, betrayal, and theft. Sitting in that courtroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and bitterness. Relief because I had fought for my rights, and bitterness because I knew the damage was done. Jessica's lawyer tried every trick in the book to discredit me, to paint her as a victim, but I had enough evidence, her emails, texts, bank records, and the forged signature, to tell a different story. When the judge finally made the ruling, it was clear she saw right through Jessica's lies. The sale of the estate was declared null and void, reversed because of the fraud. The court ordered Jessica to return the money, and she was hit with a hefty fine for forging my signature and attempting to defraud me. The judge also awarded me custody of the kids, citing her reckless behavior and financial misconduct. It was a hard-fought victory, but it felt like a small redemption for everything she'd taken from me. In the aftermath, Jessica tried to spin her version of events to friends and family, claiming I was jealous, controlling, and unfair. But I didn't care about her lies anymore. I was just glad to have my life back, even if it was forever changed. I moved out of the house into a temporary place and started rebuilding from scratch. The estate was gone, but I still had my integrity, and that was worth more than any property. I learned a lot through this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. I also learned that greed and lies will always catch up with you, eventually. Jessica's greed blinded her, and her lies cost her everything: her marriage, her reputation, and her freedom. I've realized that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to face the truth head-on, no matter how painful it is. I've also come to understand that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your dignity and standing up for what's right. Now, I focus on my kids and rebuilding my life. I do hate Jessica, at least not anymore. I just feel sorry for her, for how her greed and lies destroyed what we once had. I hope she finds whatever peace she's looking for, but I also know I won't be part of that story anymore. I've learned that honesty and loyalty matter more than anything, and I'll never let myself be again. Trust is earned, and I'll be damned if I let anyone take that from me again. That's the real lesson I walk away with.